Wake up, wake up. NFL free agency is upon us. Let's not even waste even a second more because guys are signing. What? Somebody just signed. Somebody just signed.
Welcome. It is great to have you. Damon Bruce, brought to you by Ike Sandwiches, Larry Krueger, Pig and a Pickle. And yesterday, Larry, in like a 6-hour window, our NFL news was being delivered by rocket ship. And today, that rocket ship's going to be super boosted because, like you said, the tampering period is officially underway. That makes Sunday before the tampering period the new let's not talk about a tampering period, apparently, because these teams are not waiting to throw big names, big dollars, and big headlines all around. I mean, there was a 6-hour window yesterday where you had Myles Garrett news in Cleveland for breakfast. You had Josh Allen's news for lunch with a little side of Devontae Adams thrown in with Geno to the Raiders and DK to the Steelers as an evening snack. And now here we are this morning waiting to see when and where and how the San Francisco 49ers join the free agent parade. So let's just start with that, Krueger. Where do you think it begins today? Where do you think the 49ers turn their attention first? I've been on that Drew Dalman balcony screaming his name for about a month now. The rumored numbers that come attached to him might make him a little bit too expensive to sit down and play with. So where do you think it begins for the 49ers as we obviously get going with the structural organizational reset umbrella that we're all standing underneath as well?
Well, it's interesting. It's hard to predict. And the Niners are not supposed to have a lot of money. Looks like the Chiefs are signing Jalen Moore, according to Adam Schefter. I'm watching McAfee. Breaking news: Jalen Moore, 2 years, $30 million, going to Kansas City. So wow. That's big. $15 million a year for Jalen Moore. Well, I mean, first of all, free agency officially begins on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. So 4 p.m. Eastern Wednesday is when everything becomes official. That's the beginning of the new calendar year in the NFL. But teams can start negotiating with player agents as early as this morning, March the 10th at 9 a.m. Pacific, which was 10 minutes ago. So noon Eastern, technically this thing opens for business. And it sounds like Jalen Moore has already departed. As far as what the Niners are looking for, unlike Tim Kawakami or maybe some better 49er content creators, I don't have inside sources. I give you my opinion based on what I hear, but I'm not calling around asking people what they know. It's just not the way I choose to go about it. But the one guy that I do know that is credible on the 49ers has made one statement, and that's Tony Pauline. And he said the 49ers, it was very specific, it was about 10 days ago, the 49ers in free agency will look for offensive line, wide receiver, and corner. And so I thought that was very oddly specific. And so I would say, to me, if there's one thing that I'm looking for today is, do the Niners sign DJ Reed? He was with the Niners. He was originally a Niner. He got out of the building only because of a technicality on a waiver claim. And then he most recently played for Salah's Jets and is one of the best corners in football. And Salah, had Sauce Gardner in New York and DJ Reed, and obviously doesn't have Sauce here. But I think he'd love to have that top tier aggressive, corner who can blitz off the edge and be real physical and tackle in the open field. And so that's the guy I'm looking for, Damon. I'm looking for, Chris Dalman's son, Drew Dalman. From what I heard last night, the Bears are planning a full-on assault, and they do have more money, I think, than the Niners.
By the way, one of the reasons why Jalen Moore gets a deal from the Kansas City Chiefs is because the Bears are rating that Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. They've already lost a couple of names there. So, Jalen Moore at the price that's been quoted, 2 years, $30 million. I mean, for a backup, that's way too much. As a starting tackle in the NFL, That's the best deal you're going to find in the league. $15 million for a starting tackle, if they indeed plan on starting him. Now, is Jalen Moore a starting tackle? I think he could be.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good signing by the Chiefs.
I mean, at that money, he's expected to start. I'm right. Yeah. I mean, he's expected to start. Right. I'll say this too. I mean, man, Jalen Moore should be a lesson to every young offensive lineman getting ready for the draft, which is, have a good attitude. Put your nose to the grindstone. It doesn't matter if you're a day 3 pick. Get into a camp. Try to learn a position. When they say we need you here, you're like, great, I'll do it. And then hang around. Stay healthy. Improve your game, and riches are coming your way. I mean, there are a lot of people that thought that this guy was a nothing, and now he gets $30 million. I mean, I'm really happy for him because he is a great dude. I mean, seriously, he's one of my go-to guys in the locker room for a great quote. I mean, he's just really a great interview, and he's a very positive guy. He's a big-bodied guy who came into his own this last year. But if you told me that he was going to absolutely get paid huge in free agency, I would have thought no way. But this is the laws of supply and demand.
Yeah, without a doubt, there's a law of supply and demand here, which is why I think the 49ers in the draft, they better look O-line, I think, first round, because it's just going to be deeper defensively, and they're going to need help there too. You talked about the positions you thought that the 49ers would be aggressive with today, and you brought up corner. Panthers cornerback J.C. Horn, 4 years, $100 million, 70 guaranteed. He's the highest paid defensive back now in NFL history. That was from this morning. DJ Jones, another name across the defensive line that's been rumored to come back to the 49ers because he's got some history with them. He has reached an agreement on a 3-year, $39 million deal, 26 guaranteed. He stays in Denver. So a few of the names that the 49ers, I think, had at the top of their list are already off that list. And from everything that I'm just looking at in terms of how the market's moving, veteran linebackers are getting huge money. Nick Bolton, 3 years, $45 million for the Chiefs. Patriots, Harold Landry, 3 years, $43 million. Jermaine Sherwood, 3 years, $45 million with the Jets. Seahawks, Ernest Jones, the fourth, 3 years, $33 million. At any of those numbers, Dre Greenlaw is gone, Larry, right?
Well, I think that the contract that makes the most sense for Dre Greenlaw is the Wagner deal, where he just signed for 1 year, $9.5 million, 8 of it guaranteed. But we'll see. I mean,
look at it this way: no one's taking 1 year if someone's offering 3. Now it's all guaranteed dollars, obviously, but these guys, they want some security, especially a guy coming off of an Achilles. And if the 49ers are saying, here's one at a good price, or, another team comes up and says, here's multiple years at a similar price, Dre Greenlaw's loyalty is not going to bring him back to Santa Clara.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, just looking at the way things are going in free agency, I would say expect to lose everybody. Expect to lose Mooney Ward. Expect to lose Dre. Expect to lose Jalen Moore. Expect to lose Hufanga. Expect to lose basically all of your free agents. And, I did a mock draft the other day where that was our premise. Hey, the Niners are going to lose every free agent they have, and they're not going to sign any. And then let's do a mock draft with that as kind of the backdrop. And it was a good exercise because I think it's a useful exercise because I think it's borderline likely. Now, they'll probably be able to sign a free agent or two. That would be my guess. But I don't expect any kind of, I don't expect any of their guys back. Banks is getting 18 to 20 million. He's going to be gone. Jalen Moore just got 15 million. He's gone. Dobbs, Brandon Allen, Eric Saubert, Elijah Mitchell, Patrick Taylor, even Jordan Mason, who's restricted, I think could be traded. Khalil Davis, Givens, Devondre Campbell, Greenlaw,
by the way,
Mooney Ward,
Khalil Mack back to the Chargers within the last hour, I saw.
Yeah, I mean, well, as far as the latest too, the Vikings are hosting Jonathan Allen. It was reported over the weekend by Tim Kawakami that the Niners may be getting close on a deal for Joey Bosa and also maybe targeting Jonathan Allen. Joey Bosa is getting interest from the Dolphins as well. Jonathan Allen, who was released by the Commanders, is free to visit interested teams prior to the new year, and he's doing that today. He's got a visit lined up with the Vikings, according to Tom Pelissero. So the Vikings entered Monday with over $61 million in cap space. So even Jonathan Allen, and a lot of people, there's some people that are kind of torn on that one. I think Jonathan Allen's a good player, but I do see the need for the 49ers to go kind of in a younger direction up front. Also, the Broncos are meeting with Evan Engram, the tight end released by the Jaguars. Engram's a really good player. I mean, really good player. So that would be a great get for Denver if they could somehow get Evan Engram to come there. And you just mentioned Khalil Mack is back with the Chargers. It's fully guaranteed. It's a 1-year, $18 million deal that's fully guaranteed. So
Larry,
he's still a hell of a player.
In the last 5 minutes, Adam Schefter reporting that Hassan Reddick, who is like a man forgotten at this point, has agreed to a 1-year, $14 million deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is also re-signing wide receiver Chris Godwin to a 3-year contract.
That's big.
Two are fully guaranteed. Yeah, him coming off that bad ankle dislocation. Braxton Berrios has reached an agreement on a $2 million deal with the Texans. So there you go there. Another name off the board. Yeah, you're sharing the Shefty Twitter page today. Okay, I should probably just keep that one up almost. Oh, and there you go. Falcons. Former Falcon center Drew Dolman. 3-year, $42 million deal with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I told you. And he was going to get paid big. I mean, that was the talk. I think there was some initial hope that the Niners could swim in those waters. But once you see the kind of money that's going to be going around in free agency. By the way, the Jalen Moore deal, it's even bigger than I thought. 2-year, $30 million deal, $21.2 million fully guaranteed at signing.
I mean, that's all that matters, man. If it ain't guaranteed money, you're twiddling your thumbs in these negotiations. I mean, everything is window dressing for agents and their victory tweets, but guaranteed money is where it is at. And this is where I think Brock Purdy is going to ring the fucking bell, Larry, about as loud as anyone could imagine. I'll tell you, just based on all the numbers going across, from Drew Dolman to everybody, to the most sexy free agent we've talked about, to the free agent that most NFL fans couldn't even identify or name or tell you what team he's coming from. There ain't a single deal out there. I mean, this is top shelf liquor pricing on everything and everyone, and the hometown discount, the leave a little something on the table in a capped sport, like that does not apply. Especially
maybe Bobby Wagner did that. I mean, the Dolman deal is 3 years, $42 million, $28 million guaranteed. So
Bobby Wagner did that because he's at the very end of his career. He's got one more hill to hop over, and then he gets into a recliner and he never gets out. Right? I mean,
I don't care what age Dre Greenlaw is. He's probably in the same spot. I mean, and he played 34 snaps this year. He might be at the end too. I even know he's a much younger guy. Well, it's going to be interesting. The other, Niners are looking for offensive linemen. Right tackle Braden Smith re-signs with the Colts. They're keeping him, so that's another good offensive lineman who's off the board. So, it's going to be a very interesting day for sure. And the franchise tag window closed on Tuesday. The only two players that got the franchise tag were T. Higgins and Trey Smith. And then, we saw big trades over the weekend. I mean, DK is now I loved how everybody, it's like, why bother talking? You're just going to look bad. DK Metcalf's like, man, I want to go to a warm weather city. The Steelers trade for him and extend him for a huge amount of money. And he's like, I'll go to Pittsburgh.
He wants
Myles Garrett's like, I will not go to the Browns.
Yeah,
Myles Garrett's like, Jimmy Haslam. I will not even meet with Jimmy Haslam. I will not consider signing with the Browns. He gets a monster new deal, and it's like, hey, let's go Cleveland.
$40 million makes all problems or concern about winning in the playoffs go away real quickly. By the way, $40 million annual average value for an edge rusher. Holy mackerel. The Cleveland Browns, by the way, have so disrupted the concept of normal NFL business. Other owners got to be pissed off at Jimmy Haslam. $40 million for an edge and all that guaranteed money to Deshaun in the first place. Jimmy Haslam is not getting a whole bunch of, hey, buddy, welcome to the owner meeting when he walks in. Like they can't be happy with him. But you're right, man. I mean, guys, the whole I want to win. And it sounds great. It's a T-shirt that everybody wants to be spotted in. I care about winning. Yeah. You care about getting paid. You care about getting paid as a professional. And that's what these guys are. This is, Myles Garrett doesn't give a rip whether the Cleveland Browns win or not at a $40 million price tag. He will never say another word about we got to start winning around here or I'm going to be never again. They bought his silence. And a hell of a defensive end, if you don't mind me saying.
As long as he doesn't go to Philadelphia,
right.
To me, it was like, you know what, Myles Garrett, stay in Cleveland. But I didn't want to see him in Philadelphia. I didn't want to see him in Kansas City. The big mover this morning looks like it's Tampa Bay. They re-signed Ben Bredesen, their guard, $22 million for Bredesen. $12 million guaranteed.
Per?
No, not per.
Okay.
And then they re-signed Godwin to a 3-year, $66 million deal, 44 guaranteed. And then they signed Hassan Reddick to a 1-year deal for $14 million with $12 million in guaranteed. So
he's well rested, Larry. That's
the Bucks brought their checkbook. Bucks brought their checkbook and they're ready to spend today.
You did bring up the Seahawks, though. And since that is, you want to talk about how the 49ers get back to the playoffs. Robert Saleh's back, new special teams coordinator. They got to have a great draft. Hopefully they do something here in free agency that moves the needle a little bit. But I think their playoff path just got a little bit easier, to be honest with you, because Seattle has just bowed out in the next 2 or 3 seasons of really throwing any playoff level punch after trading their starting quarterback and a very good wide receiver in DK Metcalf. I mean, Seattle in just the last few days. Yeah, they trade their starting quarterback to the Raiders for a 3rd-round pick. They traded DK Metcalf to the Steelers for a 2nd-round pick and a late pick swap. Tyler Lockett got cut. George Fant got cut. They say goodbye to 2 defensive tackles and safety Rayshon Jenkins. I mean, that is a full-on reset by Seattle. Arizona.
Well, wait a second. Before you move to Arizona, I don't know if I would agree with that. John Schneider, I mean, they get rid of Geno, but they're not going with Sam Howell. I mean, the talk is they're going to get Sam Darnold or maybe even Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, but imagine Aaron Donald or Sam Darnold or Aaron Rodgers showing up and like, where's Tyler Lockett? Where's DK Metcalf? Where's, no thanks.
Yeah,
by the way,
but they're not rebuilding. I mean, I don't think they're rebuilding. I really don't. I mean, I think you're going to see them be competitive. John Schneider's always thinking right now. I just think he's thinking reset.
Right, well, look, all football teams are competitive in a sport where the best and the worst are separated by the slimmest of margins. So, but I just think it gets a lot easier. It officially gets easier. Kevin is buzzing in with some breaking 49ers news. The 49ers and Elijah Mitchell
Chiefs are signing Elijah Mitchell.
The Chiefs are signing Elijah Mitchell. Pardon me.
For 1 year up to $3.5 million.
Hey, man,
this is a good football player for sure. This one I'm sure Kyle Shanahan is bummed about because he loves Elijah Mitchell. I don't, it doesn't fit. I mean, your game has to fit your body. Otherwise, you don't have a career. This guy's game, he's got a big man's game. He's got a small man's body. He ran 4.33 coming out of college, and yet he doesn't really play to that speed. But his greatness is that he's got great instincts, and he literally never fumbles.
Yeah.
But he also runs a little upright, and he's about 200, roughly 200 pounds, 205 pounds, something like that. So he runs a little upright. He's not the biggest guy. He doesn't play to that speed. He won't fumble, But in a year where the running back draft is unbelievably loaded, this signing surprises me. I just think you can get better backs than Elijah Mitchell.
But $3.5 million, a contract worth up to $3.5 million.
I mean, he's not getting paid a lot of money, but I'm just surprised that
$3.5. There's no reason to not have that player on your team for $3.5 million. That's a great signing by the Chiefs.
He's been hurt a lot. I mean, he didn't play at all this last year. He's been hurt a lot. He runs upright. He takes a lot of hits.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I like
he doesn't
him,
fumble.
I like him. It's too bad he couldn't have stuck around, but $3.5 million. I mean, that just shows you he's a depressed asset right there. I mean, look at some of the money that's gotten thrown around to running backs so far. There's been some huge money getting thrown around, which is why the 49ers are going to need some concept of who's going to give us a deal. Who's going to give us a deal? And I guess we got to go back to Joey Bosa, which, like I told you on Friday, if Joey Bosa walks into the Parag's office with the right attitude, this deal is done by Wednesday morning. I mean, it really should be. The Miami Dolphins could throw a wrench into the works. Diana Rossini saying that the Dolphins are interested in Joey Bosa as well. And let's be honest, he's got family ties to 2 NFL teams. He could go play with his brother, or he could go play for the team that his dad played for. And he could go back to Florida, state-free, MAGA country. He's going to be happy back home. So the push and pull now really feels for Joey Bosa is between the 49ers and playing with your brother for a team that you think is contending, or I don't know. Should we call the Dolphins a contender, Larry?
Well, probably. I mean, they badly need him. The Dolphins lost Jalen Phillips last year. They lost Bradley Chubb. They couldn't sack the quarterback. They had hardly any sacks. They are desperate for sacks. This one doesn't bother me either way. I mean, personally, if you're saying that your stated goal is you need to get, cheaper, faster, better, younger, then Joey Bosa doesn't fit. But
veterans
if
minimum,
Joey Bosa wants to take, some kind of sweetheart deal, bargain deal, but I think the presence of the Dolphins is almost guarantees that he's going to want more than the Niners have to pay. So I would be surprised if Joey Bosa comes here based on the fact that if he was going to come to the Niners, it was going to be a nobody else need bid because he wanted to go play with his brother. As soon as there's another bidder, I don't think the Niners are in it to win it. I don't think the Niners are going to pay. I think the Niners want to pay under $10 million a year, and I think there's probably a bigger offer. So if it's about money, I think he'll go somewhere else.
In the first move that officially checks the box of I don't like it from the 49ers, they released Malik Collins over the weekend. Collins, $10 million in 2025 comes off the 49ers books. They're reshuffling their defensive line. They don't have enough cards to reshuffle their currently existing defensive line. I mean, they really don't. I'm surprised that they said goodbye to Malik Collins. I know he was not great against the run, but he was very good, I thought, against the pass. And in a world of where you're looking for just somebody to do something across the defensive line, I thought, Nick Bosa did the most. Leonard Floyd probably did the second most, and Malik Collins did the third most.
Yeah, I mean, this was if this was an area of serious regression for the 49ers. I mean, this team used to have Armstead and Buckner in their prime. Now this year they had Collins and Elliott, and it's just Evan Anderson's not bad, but the rest of those guys, Kevin Givens is a free agent. I think they're going to let him walk away. Khalil Davis is a free agent. I think they'll probably let him walk away. There's a chance. Mayoko said that maybe Yetur Gross-Matos could be a cap casualty. Drake Jackson's got serious injuries. So this is, the defensive line is, I think, where the Niners are going to. That's where they're going to start. The thing about the Collins move, it was a little curious because he had a pretty good year, but it's an indication that the Niners feel like either they really love Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant, which is, they're in a unique position. A lot of times teams are, they have pick 43 and the guy that they want is going on pick 22. The Niners have a great situation here. They have pick 11. And they have a couple defensive tackles that are expected to go from 15 to 25. Now, if Mason Graham falls in their lap, do they take him? Maybe is that what this is about? Maybe they feel like Graham is going to fall into their lap at 11, or maybe they just love Nolan or Grant and feel like, oh, you know what? We're going to start our draft for sure with one of those guys. To me, when I watched, looks like the Commanders, Javon Kinlaw is signing a deal with the Commanders. So the Commanders add Kinlaw. Adam Peters can't get enough of Kinlaw. Wanted him in San Francisco, now wants him in Washington.
Have you got a price on that? Because that is 100% price related. It's whether or not that's a good signing. You're like Javon Kinlaw for peanuts? All right. Javon Kinlaw for like real starting NFL D tackle money. You just pissed away some real starting D tackle money.
Yeah. There's no dollar figure. Schefter says he's going there. He's reached agreement to go to the Commanders, but it doesn't say a price. BJ Hill's gone back to the Bengals on a 3-year deal, and it looks like Jair Alexander is still a member of the Packers, but they're still shopping him in trades. And then Evan Brown has re-signed with the Arizona Cardinals. But yeah, I mean, it's this is going to be an interesting 24 hours for sure.
Kinlaw,
I don't need Collins. I think they needed to upgrade from Collins. So Collins would have been okay, but he's more stopgap. I'd rather go younger there.
I mean, I don't know, man. It's hard to upgrade when you have. I thought he would have been part of a mix of upgrading a defensive line. You know what I mean? Like to upgrade your defensive line without him means you have to replace him too. And I thought he was a pretty good player, and it's going to be hard to replace everyone but Nick Bosa on your defensive line. And it appears that's going to be the mission here in this offseason. By the way, some numbers for Javon Kinlaw. Washington, he's all yours at this price. Without looking, Larry, what do you think the price tag is on Javon Kinlaw? It's a 3-year deal. What do you think the number?
3 years, 36 mil. I don't know.
3-year, $45 million, $30 million guaranteed.
Wow. It's a lot of money, man. It's a lot of money.
Dude, I mean, I'm telling you right now, not to go from Javon Kinlaw straight to Brock Purdy, but what were we talking? Like, they opened with 45, they're going to counter with 55, they meet in the middle at 50. Dude, Brock's getting 58 to 60 now. This is just, that was a reasonable price attached to a single player or extension. The Josh Allen deal, $250 million guaranteed, the most amount of guaranteed money ever. If you are Team Purdy, you don't care about annual average value at this point. You're just looking for guaranteed dollars over the first 3 years of a deal that'll probably have some out after year 3. It's going to be $150 million guaranteed, I think, for Purdy.
I would say it's going to be north of 100. I don't know if it'll be 150. I think it's probably beneath that, but I think north of 100. I mean, I would say, the thing about the Josh Allen deal too is didn't he get 55 million guaranteed, something like that, or 55 million AAV?
It is. So, I've got it all here for you if you want it. It's a 6-year, $330 million contract that guarantees him through the 2030 season. It's the most guaranteed money since Deshaun Watson's 230. The extension takes Allen from the 14th highest annual average value, around 43, up to the second, which is 55. The biggest annual average value in the league is Dak at 60.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've got the money. They've got the money, and he's a good player.
He's a real good player. Can I share with you my favorite Josh Allen stat and all the shit that I read about him? He's the first player ever with 25 touchdown passes, 10 touchdown runs, and fewer than 10 interceptions in a single season just last season when he was named MVP. He's accounted for 260 total touchdowns, the most in any player's first 7 seasons in NFL history, 29 more than the second closest player, which is Patrick Mahomes.
Wow. Yeah, he's a great player, and it's the Purdy deal. What's going to be interesting is going to be, what is the new structure with the Niners? Is it significant? Is it not? Is there a big difference between what the Niners are doing now compared to the past? It sounds like Shanahan's not going to have his hand on personnel. It sounds like Lynch is not going to have his hands on negotiations. It sounds like they want to be more ruthless and more discerning, and yet they want to get this Purdy deal done, and they need to get it done on time. They can franchise him if they want, but I'm sure he doesn't want that. So both sides have a little bit of leverage. I'll say this, what would make the Purdy offseason and this contract thing all the more interesting would be if the 49ers signed a quarterback today. If the 49ers signed Mac Jones today, the 49ers signed Zach Wilson today, if the 49ers signed Justin Fields today, Daniel Jones, anybody, any significant quarterback would make the Purdy contract situation all the more juicy. Because you got to think, remember this, 2 years ago, the Niners started their free agency by bringing in Sam Darnold. Now, granted, they didn't know what they were getting out of Brock Purdy at the time, but they signed Sam Darnold early on in free agency. It'll be interesting they don't have any other quarterback under contract other than Brock Purdy. Technically, that fact gives Purdy's camp a little bit of leverage from the standpoint of nobody wants their starting and in this case only quarterback for the most part. Nobody wants him holding out. So it's like the holdout has always been kind of there for Brock's camp. Well, it goes away if all of a sudden the 49ers sign Justin Fields this morning. If the Niners wind up with some quarterback who's going to be the backup, but is good enough to start, which is, I think, what they may do. That's going to be, how do you think that's going to be viewed?
Well, it's going to be really hard to hold out in any situation when the team can still come back and franchise you 2 years in a row. I don't think he's at that point to go to DEFCON 1 of holdout. Right?
He could. He could. That's all he's got. What else has he got? If he doesn't want to play at what they're offering, that's his only recourse. He has no other recourse.
And
he can just hold out. He can hold out from minicamp, hold out from OTAs, and just be like, hey, I'll show up when I get a deal. I'll show up in training camp. The Niners do not want, and I talked about this a week ago. A bad deal as far as the team is concerned, signed in April or May is going to be far, far better than an advantageous cap deal signed in August or September. You have to get this done.
Time to do business now. The least amount of money you'll pay right now. And the Niners do not move quickly on these things, which is a criticism that you and I have been offering for over a year now. How much easier would free agency be had this Purdy extension already been knocked out and figured out? They'd know exactly the money that they had left to play with. It is odd. It is odd the way that they go about doing their business sometimes. And that's why I guess, the new buzzwords, if you want to call them that, the new, thing that you're probably going to hear an awful lot between now and the start of next year. And I guess we can thank Mike Silver for this one. The new catchphrase coming out of Santa Clara, Larry, seems to be organizational reset. Mike Silver basically in The Athletic said Jed is about to be more cutthroat with money than before. The long and short of it is a Super Bowl loss plus Brandon Ayuk's contract regret plus a 6-win season has Jed York basically grabbing the steering wheel from Kyle Shanahan and giving more control of the car to John Lynch and Parag Marante than they had before. I'm not even sure that that's a bad thing. I actually think that might be a good thing for all involved. I think that that's good for Shanahan. I think it could be good for the team. And look, when you hear organizational reset, though, and Jed York being involved, you got to gulp a little. Because the last time we saw an organizational reset, you got a year of Tom Sula and a year of Chip Kelly after saying goodbye to Jim Harbaugh over all the bad feelings over that. So I don't know if this is a real organizational reset as much as it is like, Kyle, just go coach. Let your front office be your front office. You go coach. I don't think that that's a bad thing. Now, John Lynch and Parag better get to work. I think part of the organizational reset should be everybody getting up an hour earlier every day and trying to get news to happen. I haven't seen the name 49ers in free agency yet, other than players are leaving the 49ers. So, guys, if you're going to do something, get on it. Like, go ahead, do something.
It's day one of free agency. It's day one of free agency, and most of the bad deals are cut in the beginning anyway. So I'm not really that frustrated they're not active on day one of free agency, especially when they're hugged up against the cap, and I don't expect them to be big free agent players.
But there should be a Kittle extension. There should already be a Kittle extension. Purdy should be done. Let's be honest. Purdy should be done by now. He should. Here's the thing. If they are as committed to Purdy as they make it seem publicly, what are you waiting for?
My bigger concern is not that. My bigger concern is, when has it ever been a positive for Jed and Parag to be more involved? I mean, it hasn't been a positive. We can sit there and hope, but I mean, it really hasn't been a positive. Now, just because Shanahan is not good at drafting doesn't mean that Jed and Parag should have a bigger say in everything. We'll see. I mean, it's like, this is Jed's one move. He can go to his bean counting buddy Parag and be like, oh, I'll trust Parag. Great, but somebody's going to have to find these players, and it ain't going to be Parag. So who's that going to be? And they're going to have to really be great in the draft. We'll see what they're able to do. I mean, I think it's going to be really an interesting time, because it's like, they say they want to get, they want to be ruthless in negotiations. And yet you have the one player on your team that, if you're super ruthless in negotiations, you can single-handedly sink your season. And if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'd be really sensitive to anybody sinking any of my seasons right now, when a sunk season may result in me leaving. So I don't know. I mean, this could be the beginning of the end. It could be nothing in a great situation, in that Kyle's not great at drafting and everybody's now in the lane that they're best at. That's one way to look at it. Or it could be the beginning of the end. It could be John, that Jed and Parag and the family resents Kyle. There could be some resentment from Kyle towards them, and there may be a real frostiness about the whole relationship going forward. And that can't be a good thing. So it's just, we'll see what it results in. But, once again, when, the York hires included Dennis Erickson for Steve Mariucci, Mike Nolan, Mike Singletary, Jim Tomsula, Chip Kelly. I mean, the only time they've ever really gotten it right was with Harbaugh and Shanahan, and now they're getting cold feet on some of the stuff coming from Shanahan. So we'll see. I mean, I don't love Shanahan's personnel decisions, but I really don't. If you're having Jed and Parag more involved in the football side, I can't see that being a good thing.
So, Jed, I would agree. Parag is a pretty good negotiator. I mean, I do. I think that he might be a little too good at it. He tries to win too many deals, and maybe that's what slows things down. I've also always said, if Parag Marate's name had been Mike Smith, he wouldn't be nearly as ill-regarded as he is. I mean, he sounds like a Bond villain, Parag Marate. So it's an easy name to root against. But I think he's probably pretty good at his job, right? And the 49ers, for the most part, have kept the players I think that they should have kept, signed a lot of players I think they should have signed. Like, I don't think it's a personnel disaster until you start looking at what they've done in the draft. That's where the personnel disaster is sort of come from. And again, I'm just surprised at the deals that they know. Like, you need a starting quarterback next year. Are you going to bring back Purdy? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, do it. George Kittle, again, it should be done by now. What are we even talking about? Florio wrote this about Brock Purdy. And again, look, the whole question about Purdy is based on where you think he is in the hierarchy of NFL quarterbacks. If you really do think he is a mid-tier, middle-of-the-pack quarterback, yeah, you do not want to give that guy more than $55 million a year. Although that number 3 years from now probably looks like a bargain for any starting NFL quarterback. But Purdy's got a year left on his rookie deal at $5.346 million. The 49ers could lowball him for 2025, forcing him to carry the compensation risks of the injury and regression of another full season before embarking on a franchise tag dance if they do that. The tag would be at $40.2 million for 2025. It likely won't hit $45 million to 2026. And that's the shrewdness of this. Brock, we're offering you $45 million. If we tag you, you're probably not getting $45 million. As a matter of fact, we pretty much proved that you're not going to get $45 million. So if you want that, that's the number you like. You can't get that even with a tag. So agree to that as your baseline now, and we'll incentivize you out, I guess, is, the way the Niners would put that together. While Purdy has every right to seek his last penny, writes Flory. I'll be done here in a second. It's important to match expectations with overall ability. Florio says he's a middle-of-the-pack starter. Even with the influence of Shanahan's masterful coaching, in fairness, Purdy should make middle-of-the-pack money. Currently $45 million per year in new money, averaging just outside of the top 10. Now, I think Purdy is better than a middle-of-the-pack starter.
Well, I mean, once again, just because you have an opinion doesn't mean it's the case. And just because you have an opinion doesn't mean that we should ignore the marketplace. Right. Because several other players that also are mid-pack players are making $50 million. I mean, Brock Purdy has accomplished more than Trevor Lawrence. He should be paid in that neighborhood, should he not? Why should Trevor Lawrence be paid $50 million based on long hair, based on what he did at Clemson? If the pay is based on what they've done in the NFL, Brock Purdy's done more in the NFL than Trevor Lawrence. He should be paid more.
This way, man. I know that he's coming off an MVP year and he just signed a huge contract, and everyone. You're correctly saying that Brock Purdy and Josh Allen are not the same. They really aren't.
The market's the market. It's not.
What separates them though is Purdy's been to a Super Bowl and Josh Allen hasn't. I mean, there's that too.
There's other guys who have already signed. You know what I mean? That are making between 50 and 60 million. If you want to have some correction on quarterback salaries, that's fine. But there's no reason that it should start. Why are you singling out Brock Purdy? Why is Brock Purdy somehow singled out when he's already done more than many of the guys who make $50 million in every category imaginable, from wins to stats to you pick your stat, whatever. Brock Purdy has done more than many guys making north of $50 million. So, I mean, heck, you're going to listen to Florio, who hates the Niners, hates Brock Purdy. It's just like, Florio has been wrong more than he's been right. Steve Young says pay him. Joe Montana says pay him. The Niners themselves are like, we're going to pay this guy. This is our guy. So, I mean, that's just the way it is.
Again, so do it.
Jimmy Garoppolo is going back to the Rams on a 1-year deal. Jaguars signed Jordan Lewis, the Cowboy corner. Patriots are signing the former Raider linebacker Robert Spillane. Yeah, $30 million guaranteed for Kinlaw. Wow, that is a ton.
That's an awful lot of money for a guy who, even when he is available, doesn't do that much. What does Kinlaw do?
He had a good year this year.
Kinlaw sits in a gap and holds it. And there's value to that across a defensive line, I guess. But $30 million for a gap stuffer? Fuck.
Yeah, I mean, it's defensive lineman in free agency, man. It's and the bottom line is everybody by definition gets overpaid in free agency. That's why you can't build through free agency. That's why you got to build through the draft. Because if you build through the draft, that's where your cheap reservoir of players comes from. You can augment it with a free agent here or there. I think Green Bay does the best job. They build almost exclusively in the draft, and then they don't take a bunch of mediocre players. They handpick difference makers on in free agency, and that's what they did. They got Xavier McKinney, they got Josh Jacobs. They didn't go to the Super Bowl, but they added two really good football players to their team. I think that's the way to go in free agency. Don't spend $30 million on Javon Kinlaw. Don't, get into a bid war for Elijah Mitchell. Don't go crazy on people's backup offensive linemen. Draft those guys. Find the guy in the draft. It's a far more efficient way to do it than try to spend your way in free agency. But that's what teams are going to do, and they do it every year. It's funny. I saw an interview with Daniel Jeremiah. He's like, I talked to a bunch of NFL people, and they're all like, yeah, we're not going to go big in the first round of free agency. We're more going to look at day 2, day 3 guys. And he's like, but once again, come time for free agency, that kind of prudence goes out the window, and everybody just starts throwing money around.
Right. You go into the bar and it's drinks for everybody after, like we weren't going to go nuts tonight, but then you're there and you order a big round. And enough people in the chat to go with breaking news from the chat, which is always a tough place to get your breaking news from. But it looks like Talanoa Hufanga is gone. Hufanga to the Broncos. I don't know who's got that. Let me see if it's Rappaport.
I didn't see that one yet. Yeah. Well, you know what? Another guy. Didn't expect him to come back. I really don't expect the 49ers free agents to come back. I was hoping that Greenlaw would come back. But other than that, I kind of was resigned to they were all leaving.
Well, let's talk about what they're down to Greenlaw and Javarius Ward.
Who's he's leaving.
Aaron Banks, sure. But Banks is as good as gone. He's definitely
Banks
gone.
Is
right?
leaving. Banks is going to leave. 18 to 20 million a year for Banks. They're saying maybe Kansas City. So maybe Jalen Moore kind of took that spot from Banks. That's interesting too. But yeah, Banks is leaving. They're all leaving. Only Greenlaw would be the only guy that I think potentially could stay. And even that I would say is a long shot. And I don't know about you, and I don't know how most Niner fans feel, but personally, I have no problem. I mean, if you're looking at this list of free agents, I don't see any. If it was up to me, I said Greenlaw, I'd like to have back. Nick McLeod, who was, going to be a cheap item. He's a backup corner, special teams ace. I think he's a good special teamer. I'd re-sign him. Everybody else on defense, Rock Yassin, Yadam, Campbell, Givens, Khalil Davis, Gibson, Afanga, Mooney, let them all go. Offensively, I would let them all go. Maybe I would re-sign the offensive lineman. They got Charlie Heck late in the year just because they liked him a little bit, and they just acquired him late in the year. But everybody else, Dobbs, Allen, Banks, Jalen Moore, Chris Conley, Eric Saubert, Elijah Mitchell, Patrick Taylor, even Jordan Mason, I think, is probably going to get traded. I think all those guys are moving on. I think it's going to be a major bloodletting of the roster this year.
The 49ers earlier in the weekend, maybe this happened on Friday, there wasn't much news, and it shouldn't be because it's not a big name at all. But, you said McLeod maybe comes back. Maybe he doesn't, because they claim Trey Tomlinson, a corner off waivers from the Rams. He's 25. He played at TCU. He's appeared in 15 games. He played special teams. He's had a postseason appearance as well. So maybe Trey Tomlinson is in the 49ers future plans here because they've signed him.
He's intriguing, and now he is tiny, right? He's 5'7" and change,
5'9",
and go look at his combine and thing. They measured him at 5'7" and change, I believe, but he's also had a 39-inch vertical, a great 40. He's very fast, very explosive, small, but he won the Thorpe Award in college in 2022 as the best defensive back in the nation. So it's not like this guy's like just some workout wonder. This guy was a great player who tested like a great athlete. He's just tiny. So we'll see. I mean, he's been with the Rams. The Niners, signed him, and he's a nickel corner. I don't know if that means that they're not going to be active, or maybe that was an indication that the DJ Reed market has gone up and away and just is priced them out. Maybe that's why they made that move. We'll find out. But yeah, the Niners need a lot of help across this roster, and corners another area, and they need more speed there. So to get a guy who has this kind of speed and was this accomplished, at TCU is for nothing, is a pretty nice little acquisition.
Look, this isn't, a scientific study on my part, but it feels like, the Arizona Cardinals and the 49ers haven't had their name attached to anybody yet. And that hasn't happened. But the NFC West, Larry, it did change quite a bit this weekend. As we said earlier, Seattle sees the exit in trades of its starting quarterback and DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett got let go. So that's an awful lot of, an offense from Seattle that's going to be reset. But that's not the offense I want to talk about. The offense I want to talk about in the NFC West is now what the Rams look like with Davante Adams. Because this is, if you really talk about all the deals that are going to affect the 49ers, deals that happen in your division are going to be your problem twice a year. And look, Matthew Stafford plus Adams plus Puka plus McVay, that's a problem, Larry. That's a problem. I know that Adams is 32 years old, but 2 years, $46 million contract, $26 million guaranteed. Feels like a really, really good investment. Didn't feel like the Jets ever used him the right way. Somebody pointed out that, nobody has more pre-snap motion in football than McVay. He finds matchup problems and nightmares through that pre-snap motion. Davante Adams stepping into the Cooper Kupp role. That's pretty damn good, man. Look out for the Rams. They're not going anywhere. I mean, I really like Kyron Williams. Plus, this is a team that just won the division and made a divisional round appearance, not based on the strength of their offense, but a very young defense that more than lived up to the billing. And, dude, the Rams are going to be a problem next year.
No question. I mean, Les Snead is a good GM, and they did an amazing job in 2 short years. I mean, they said goodbye to Aaron Donald, and in 2 short years, they brought in Kobe Turner, Byron Young, Braden Fisk, and obviously Jared Verse. So they've got a tremendous, young defensive line, the makings of one at least. And then offensive line, they built that up. They re-signed out Alaric Jackson, Steve Avila. They drafted in the 2nd round. They drafted Bo Limmer out of Arkansas in the 6th round. He stepped in at center. He's been really good. They signed Kevin Dotson in free agency away from the Steelers. Yeah, they've built up their line. They still have Stafford. Personally, I don't think much of this move. I mean, I thought it was amazing that they gave Tutu Atwell $10 million. That shocked me, but they gave Tutu 1 year, $10 million, and they're replacing Kupp with Davante. They're different players, but I think I don't know that they're dramatically improved there. I mean, I like Cooper Kupp. I think, he was an incredible player, great route runner.
Yeah,
and
just great, like truly historically great seasons that we've seen in the last decade of football. I think Saquon's year that he just had is number 1 on top of the list, right? Saquon, you cannot have a better season in the NFL than what Saquon Barkley just had. And then when Cooper Kupp picked up the Triple Crown and was getting MVP consideration, I mean, he had an unbelievable year.
They got older here, though. I mean, Cooper Kupp is younger than Davante Adams. So, I mean, Cooper Kupp maybe doesn't have as much left. But I think the Davante Adams move is going to get headlines, but the nice thing about the Rams is they have the go pattern guy in Atwell. So they have the guy who stretches the field. And Demarcus Robinson's a free agent, but if he comes back.
Tutu got 1 year, $10 million. That's it?
He got $10 million. $10 million for 1 year.
Hold on. Now, wait a minute.
Seems like a lot.
You could say it seems like a lot, but he's 25 years old.
Yeah, but I mean, he doesn't start. Basically, I like him. I've been advocating the Niners to go sign. Yeah, but not for $10 million. I mean, not $10 million. I mean, that's pricey for a go pattern guy. But if you have a Tutu Atwell, you can have Puka, you can have Devontae, you can have Cooper Kupp, you can have these possession guys. So, I think Devontae's an amazing player at this point? No, I think he's a big name at this point. But still, I mean, it's, at least he's healthy and ready to roll. So, yeah, the Rams are going to be a factor. Kyron Williams in the backfield, Blake Corum, and you still have Stafford for another year. And they get the draft coming up, and they've built up their defensive line. If they build up the rest of their defense, they could be a real factor.
What else we got going on here? Anything in the last minute? This is such a good, fun day. I'm just looking to see what I'm looking at Ian Rappaport. I'm looking to see what's going on here. What is the latest? Today's a day where you need a producer in your ear.
Well, I mean, it sounds like the Niners are competing with 3 other teams for Dre Greenlaw. As far as who are the other teams, the Falcons, Broncos, and Texans are all supposedly interested. The Rams also supposedly have some interest. This is going to be an interesting one because this is an emotional thing for the 49ers. I mean, they want Dre Greenlaw back. They know it doesn't make sense. They just want him back because they love him as a guy and they know that he's a big culture player. There was some talk that, from Mayoko and some of the Niner beat writers that the Niners fallback would be Jamie and Sherwood. And now Sherwood's off the market. So, I mean, I'll say this. I do love Willie Gay, who's, a Saints linebacker who's very, very fast. And I love Akeem Davis-Gaither from Cincinnati. There's 2 good young linebackers there. I'm looking at some of the other signings. Harold Landry has gone to the Patriots. So that's kind of an interesting one.
By the way, that Jalen Moore deal to the Kansas City Chiefs for $15 million a year already looks better than it did a half an hour ago, Larry, when we started the show. Titans have agreed to terms with Steelers left tackle Dan Moore on a 4-year, $82 million deal, $50 million guaranteed. It is the biggest for a tackle thus far.
The guy, like by himself, gave up 12 sacks this year.
Yeah.
He had a rough year. By the way, the Cardinals have re-signed Baron Browning, who they traded for at the trade deadline. He gets 2 years, $15 million to stay with the Arizona Cardinals. So some of the interesting moves coming down. But, yeah, I mean, to me, corner, wide receiver, offensive line, I think is where the Niners look. If you said, give me 2 or 3 guys' names to look for, I'll say this. Tevin Jenkins, I think, is a good fit. The Bears guard / potential right tackle. He's played mostly guard, but I think he's a fit. He's a younger free agent.
He was a disappointment as a tackle.
Yeah, I mean, he's been, he was a really good player at Oklahoma State. He's kind of a road grading guard. They could plug him in at left guard. I think he makes sense. I think Cam Bynum, who went to Cal and is a pretty good free safety with the Vikings, I could see him making some sense. Definitely DJ Reed. I see Reed as a corner that makes a lot of sense. And I'll say either Rondale Moore or Elijah Moore at wide receiver, maybe Darius Slayton for the 49ers. I don't think it's going to be a big name guy, but I do think wide receiver.
Yeah.
I could see them going after somebody who could run at wide receiver, somebody who's going to give them that vertical threat.
I told you last week that a Darius Slayton-ish player is what the Niners are probably going to do at free agency, right? It'll be his phone did not ring right at the start of free agency. That's what the Niners are that's what the Niners are pursuing, by the way. Guys whose phones haven't rung yet.
Yeah,
that's the money that they got.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have a lot of money under the cap. I mean, they're like 6th in the league, but I mean, it's like, how much do they want to spend?
But how
much do they want to spend?
What's your mark for Brock? If you are going to bring in Joey Bosa again, that comes with a huge good luck with that. So it better be a price point that makes everybody go, well, shit, I won't even worry about it if he gets hurt.
Paulson Adebo is off the market. This is another guy I thought the Niners maybe would go after. The former Stanford corner is jumping to the New York Giants. So Mike Garafolo reporting that Paulson Adebo leaving the Saints and going to the Giants. That's a good signing because Paulson Adebo's young, he's healthy, he's productive. That's a good get for the New York Giants for sure. I thought he might be on the, because when I saw corner being, the Niner spot, they're looking for in free agency, I thought, well, maybe a guy like that, but obviously he was priced too highly for them. I would not expect the 49ers to do more than one or two free agent deals of any note during this period, whether it happens today or not. I just don't think they're going to be big players in free agency. I think when John Lynch comes out and says, hey, we want to get younger, I think that's real. And I think that they'll probably go for guys like, guys who are more on the younger end of the free agent market.
What do we got here from Rappaport? Big one from Tom Pelissero. What is that? The Patriots are signing Carlton Davis, 3-year, was a $60 million. Yeah, I need better glasses. With 30 foot. Thank you, Kevin. That thing grew as soon as my request for better glasses went out. 3 years, $60 million, 34.5, fully guaranteed. Holy shit.
Yeah. Heck, Braxton Berrios got 1-year deal for $2 million.
Look, I'm going to start making sure Jack pays more attention in flag football. Good God.
Yeah, there's a lot of money out there. But this isn't the way you build your football team. I think that's pretty clear.
This should be a day where you
find $50 million guaranteed for Dan Moore. Wow.
Yeah, Larry, this is the day where you find the sprinkles to put on top of a cake that's already been baked and ready to be served, right? That's what free agency should be. Teams looking to rebuild through free agency. They're the crazy ones.
Though the Commanders did it last year and made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. They signed 20 free agents.
They did. Got a lot of guys for song and dance numbers, though. A lot of small commitments, a lot of fringe guys who were all buoyed by, hey, this Jalen Moore guy is not only rookie of the year, he's almost an MVP candidate. I mean, that was incredible. Or Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. The Eagles got worse today. The Panthers are picking off Milton Williams, so that's a good sign. It looks like Milton Williams is getting a multi-year deal to jump from the Eagles to the Panthers, according to Schefter. So that's good. You need the Eagles to come back to the earth a little bit. They can't just keep getting better and better and better and better. At some point, somebody's got to pick off a couple of their guys, and losing Milton Williams definitely will hurt them. That's definitely, because they re-signed Zach Bond. So they chose to re-sign Zach Bond, and they gave Bond big money. But yeah, the other one that's going to be interesting is what is going to happen on the Brandon Ayuk front. Will the Niners keep Brandon Ayuk? Will they try to rehab him? Or as John Lynch seemed to indicate in Indy, is there a chance that they would move Brandon Ayuk? And we'll see. I mean, the Patriots have gone for some players, but they haven't gone for any wide receivers yet, have they?
No.
So that could be, there was a lot of talk. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah said the talk among NFL scouts, he said this on the NFL Network last week, was that DK Metcalf was going to be a Patriot. And that didn't happen. DK got traded to the Steelers and then signed a 5-year, $150 million deal with the Steelers. So the Pats are still looking for that receiver. So I don't know. We'll see.
I don't think I've ever asked you. We both talked about him, being a headache for the Niners, but Diamador Lenore's done great against them. What do you think of DK Metcalf? What do you really think of DK Metcalf? And what do you think of 5 years, $150 million to go to a team that's already got a headache young wide receiver in George Pickens? And Metcalf is a bit of a headache himself.
You can shut him down too easily. He had. I mean, the stat of DK Metcalf that has to be understood is that he had a worse 3-cone drill than Tom Brady.
Good God.
So think about that for a second. A wide receiver whose job it is to stop and start and turn and twist and run routes and, in and out of breaks, had a worse 3-cone time than Tom Brady. So he has I would compare, if we were talking about these guys like cars, DK Metcalf is a drag racer. He's big, he's powerful, and he can't handle worth a damn, right? He's just straight down the line. Like if you just want somebody who's just going to come blasting off the line and run, he runs 3 routes, right? He runs a go route, he runs a post route, and he runs a corner route. He basically runs 10 yards and goes straight, or 10 yards and veers in or out. That's it. He doesn't run the in-breaking routes. He doesn't run the out-breaking routes. He doesn't run the full tree, anywhere close to the full tree of routes. He just doesn't. But what he does do, he's so big, he's so fast, he's so strong that he is a mismatch. And if you have other guys that can run those other routes, and you're just looking for that big, strong, receiver that can stretch the field, I mean, he's a vertical threat. He's a home run hitter. He's a big play waiting to happen. And if you have the other pieces, like on that team, they had Lockett in the Jigba.
Right.
And those guys ran their figure 8 routes and all kinds of ins and outs and bubble
complementary
screens.
wide receivers. Something that the Niners can't even.
Those guys ran all the routes, and this guy ran the go route. This guy ran the post route. This guy ran the corner route, and he ran it really well. But for that kind of money, I need a more complete all-around guy. Also, I talked to Mooney Ward about him, and he feels like he's one of the easier guys to shut down of the great receivers in the league, because you kind of know that he's limited as a route runner. So you kind of know what routes. He can't really sell other routes because you just and he doesn't run them with great precision. He doesn't have great ball skills. He body catches a lot of stuff up on his pads. He's big, strong, and fast, but he's not a superstar. He's just.
And I'll also tell you, his attitude is a problem as well. Maybe 5 years and 150 million will calm that all down. But I'll tell you, as I'm looking at the Steelers right now, they're starting to look like a team that does not have a real plan or an identity as to what they want to be. I mean, between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, now they're talking. They might be really interested in Aaron Rodgers. Well, nothing says you might be more desperate than you're really interested in Aaron Rodgers when you've got 2 younger than Aaron serviceable quarterbacks on your I'm going to tell you right now, Rodgers and Tomlinson, that's a bad fit. Rodgers in the city of Pittsburgh, that's
Mike Tomlin, you mean?
Yeah, Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
What did I say? LaDainian Tomlinson? Sorry.
Yeah.
But Rodgers and Tomlin is a bad fit. The city of Pittsburgh and Rodgers is a bad fit. He's going to be 42 years old. How about this? Aaron Rodgers has only won 13 of the past 34 games that he's started and finished. And Zach Wilson won more game with the Jets than Aaron Rodgers did. And you want to pair him with 2 headache wide receivers? That's just toxic. I
don't understand where Rodgers is going to play, and it seems like it's time for him to hang it up. I mean, it's just time. I know he can still throw the ball, but he doesn't take hits. He won't take hits. He's just kind of a unique character at this point. I don't know where he fits. It has to be a team that thinks they're ready to win. Pittsburgh's weird because I watched them a lot last year. For whatever reason, sometimes you catch a team 4 or 5 times more than other teams. Like there were teams I didn't see all year, but I saw Pittsburgh a ton. And Fields was just terrible in the red zone. Like his feel in the red zone, he doesn't throw with any anticipation in the red zone. So it's like he doesn't really process and see. He doesn't see it in the ball. He holds the ball too long. So it's like he kind of is a broken quarterback. So then they went away from him, even though they had him in there, they were winning games because their D is so good and the run game was solid. But then they move off of him. They go to Russell, and Russell was clearly better than Fields. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And then they kind of don't go as far as they want. They kind of peter out at the end. Now they're like, do they not want Russell? It doesn't seem like they want Russell, but they don't want Fields, but they're talking about other guys and Rodgers and this and that. It's like, it's weird. It's like the Steelers have no concept of what they want at quarterback. And I don't know what the future is for Fields or for Russell. It's like Fields needs to go somewhere. I think I think and I bring up Fields, Damon, because last night I'm doing a stream with Lund, and we're talking about, what are some moves that you might see? Give us some predictions, Niner fans. And one of the guys in the chat was like, Justin Fields will be a 49er tomorrow. Okay. And he was like very serious about it. Then he came back with Justin Fields to the Niners tomorrow. And so John and I kind of talked about it, and we were kind of laughing about it, but just look at it this way. From two perspectives only, Fields and the Niners. From Fields' perspective, yeah, you know what? If I was Fields, I just watched Sam Darnold, who I think is pretty bad, suddenly rediscover himself playing for the 49ers, and then kind of all of a sudden 1 year with the Niners as a backup, and all of a sudden he's like rehabilitated, and he goes to Minnesota, now he's getting paid. If I'm Justin Fields, after being with the bad Bears and their offense, sorry, Damon, because I know you're a Bears guy, but their bad Bears offense, and then going to Pittsburgh, and it's like kind of they're all about their defense, and and not a great offense. If I was Fields, I think I would want to be, even if I got to sit behind Purdy, I think I would want to be with Shanahan in this offense if the Niners are going to continue having great weapons and that kind of thing, because the Niners offense works. And the other thing from the Niner perspective, after watching Brandon Allen in Green Bay and Dobbs late in the year, it's like, man, I kind of think that I never again ever want to have a quarterback that can't run. It's like, I think you have to be able to run in today's NFL. Look who won the Super Bowl, Hurts. Look who lost the Super Bowl, Mahomes. Look who was in the playoffs. A lot of quarterbacks that can run.
Well, how about this? I don't know about got to run, but you got to be mobile, right?
Got to have some mobility.
A statuesque, pure, your grandfather rooted for type of Peyton Manning level of quarterback.
Johnny Unitas need not apply.
Yeah, hard to find these days. Hard to
find.
And
and Marino and all these guys. You got to be able, even, and I like some of these pocket passers. I don't dislike Mac Jones as a prospect. I think Mac Jones does some good things, but
by the way, Mac Jones
is available.
Fucking ran everywhere when he was out there. Oh no, it was no, it wasn't Mac. It was the guy that replaced him in New England.
Bailey Zappi, that guy?
No.
Joe Milton?
No, hold on, wait.
Joe Milton does run. He's huge and fast. But the point is, just from the Niners' perspective and Fields' perspective, right? Because those are the perspective of the team and the player.
Drake May.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is more of a runner than anyone thought he would be. He just had he ran for almost as many yards as Michael Vick did.
Yeah, Drake May is a good young quarterback for sure. I don't know if he's great, but he's a good young quarterback. But I mean, just think about it from Fields' perspective. You played on two teams, and it's like you kind of know. I mean, if you don't know, you should know. You don't get forever. You get 3, 4, 5 chances. Maybe if you're talented, you're not going to get a million chances. So like I could see where if there wasn't a starting job available on a good team, that a guy like Fields would say, get me with Shanahan, get me with Purdy, behind Purdy, get me to San Francisco because they have a good offense. And let me just rehabilitate myself like Darnold did in a good offense. That's one from his perspective. From the Niner perspective, Damon, I think it works because they don't have Dobbs, they don't have Allen, and they just said they want to play super hardball with Brock Purdy. Well, what's nothing's more hardball than there's a young, talented guy who's good enough to start in the NFL, who's ready to start. If you decide you want to hold out, he'll be starting. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think it works from the Niner perspective. I think it works from the player perspective. I don't know that what it would cost. I don't know what he would want, and I don't know where. But if I'm if I'm Justin Fields, I do not just go, I'll be the starter on the worst team in the NFL and get killed. I don't think that's what he needs. I think he needs kind of like a Kyle Shanahan offense, lots of options, get the ball out of your hand. You're just constantly, throwing it down to McCaffrey and their other weapons. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just thinking of this. No. Maybe I'm too influenced by last night's, chat, and because the guy was so confident, Justin Fields to the Niners. But if you do think about it, it would give the Niners more, whatever you want to call it, clout, credibility. Not credibility. What are we talking about? They're going to have more of the upper hand in this negotiation if they have another quarterback that's sitting right there.
It's almost impossible, Larry, for a player to overcome bad situations. And who should know more about that than Justin Fields, right? He was in a bad situation in Chicago. And when it started to look better, the situation got worse because it was time to move on from coaches and blah, blah, blah. So there was all of that. Then he goes to Pittsburgh, which feels like a good situation. But then all of a sudden, there's Russell Wilson. So this isn't really a great situation for you to learn on the fly or develop or not be focused on the guy who's in your rearview mirror. And then when Tomlin made the switch, you didn't see Justin Fields again. I think you're right. Justin Fields taking a lesser role to be in a good situation to become a better quarterback, which he needs to be an effective NFL quarterback. He needs to see the field better and process faster. And I think that Shanahan can bake that into quarterbacks. If I'm Justin Fields, I'm looking at Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard and saying, well, look, man, I'm better than both of those guys. And look at how good those guys were under Shanahan for small slivers of time.
I mean, what did Darnold really even do with the Niners, Damon? He played one game in week 17 against Carson Wentz and the Rams at home, lost the game.
Right. Wentz looked better than he did.
Wentz outplayed him, and I believe he got sacked on the last play or threw a key interception. I forget, but he didn't play particularly well. He lost to Wentz at home in a meaningless game and somehow surfed that to a brand new opportunity with the Vikings, a really good single season. And now he's probably going to get paid a ton by Seattle.
Again,
and he's reclaimed his career. If I'm Justin Fields, I look at Baker Mayfield reclaiming his career and what it's done for his pocketbook. I look at Sam Darnold reclaiming his career, what it's done for his pocketbook. I'm looking at Geno Smith and the way he reclaimed his career and what it's done for his finances. And I'm saying, you know what? Get me to San Francisco. I don't even need to play. I'll sit behind Purdy. I'll learn from Purdy. I'll learn from Shanahan. I'll be cleansed. And a year from now, somebody's going to pay me handsomely, or maybe Brock Purdy gets hurt and I have this amazing year in San Francisco and I take over as the guy. I'm just saying, I think it makes sense for Fields. I think it makes sense for the Niners if they really do want to. I'm an advocate for let's make everybody uncomfortable. Why not? Because I think when you're uncomfortable, you're more on edge. When you're more on edge, I think you get more production out of people that are on edge, as opposed to, everybody, if you're a teacher and you've got tenure and there ain't nobody's firing your ass and you're going to be there for the next 25 years, whether the kids graduate or not, whether they learn anything or not. To me, that's like, that's a recipe for I'm not getting the best out of my employee. But if it's like, hey man, somebody's evaluating you and somebody's looking at ratings and this and clicks and all that, and you're being evaluated, yeah, you're going to step up your game. So I don't know.
Larry,
that's the one that, and imagine the juice, Damon, for guys like you and I, and for people who talk about this for a living. If you injected Justin Fields into this mix. Now, I don't think the Niners would do that, but they do want to. It's a new world order. It is Parag. They do want to play super hardball with Brock. It doesn't have to be Fields. It could be Zach Wilson. It could be Mac Jones. It could be Daniel Jones. But I think the veteran quarterback who can take Brock's job, I think that signing is coming, man. I really do.
What do you think about Russell Wilson? Probably too expensive. If you're not signing Russell Wilson to do anything but start, right?
The only thing about Russell Wilson is, doesn't Russell have to play? Like, he can't come here and sit. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's got to play. Where Fields is so young still, where he could still sit like a Darnold sat. I mean, how old's Darnold right now?
How old is he?
Yeah, is he because he's now getting an opportunity. I mean, he got an opportunity this year to be the starter. He sat at whatever age he sat at.
He's 27. Yeah, By the way,
he sat at age 26 for a full year.
Right.
And Fields is younger, right? Isn't Fields probably younger than that?
Is definitely younger. Fields is, well, he's 26. He just turned 26 like 5 days ago.
So if he gets right, if let's just say Fields comes here, he rehabilitates himself, he's got a decade of good play in the NFL that he can make back whatever money, he lost this year.
By the way,
just
Chris,
an idea.
Is Russell a future Hall of Famer? Yes.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, he's going. Anyway, look. If you're Justin Fields, it's hard to sell. It's hard to sell after you've been to 2 teams. You're going into year 5. It's hard to keep selling people your potential. Like, this is who you are. It's not working out right. So going somewhere where he can learn, and, sometimes a little mystery is the best thing to make other teams interested. God forbid you go out there and be exposed as not ready. Justin Fields has been exposed a few times as not ready. So coming to the Niners where he plays less, develops, gets coached up, and adds some mystery and the concept of what potentially is he now after a year of Shanahan. It is good, smart business for him. Justin Fields should want to be a Niner more than the Niners should even really want him, to be honest with you. Because what are you going to bring a quarterback like that for? You bring him in for, okay, so if we have to play him, maybe we play him in red zone situations. Well, Justin Fields isn't good in red zone situations.
Well, I mean, you'd bring him in just as your number 2 quarterback to potentially start if Brock got hurt. But I mean, also, I would look at it this way. It's like, the 40, if you lose your quarterback in the NFL, your starting quarterback, doesn't matter what team we're talking about. Bills lose Josh Allen. Chiefs lose Mahomes. Niners lose Purdy. It's game over. Season's over. I mean, you may still have games left. You may compete, but your Super Bowl opportunity is ended. Well, you know what? If you add a guy like Fields, all it does is bring out the best in Brock Purdy, mission accomplished. If that's all you get, if Brock Purdy plays the full season, never gets hurt, but he plays great, well, I like the idea of having Justin Fields right there. And then, here's the other thing, Damon. What if Brock Purdy does get hurt for 2 or 3 games and Justin Fields comes in, he plays great? Well, now you've got an asset that you potentially can trade. And what way to build? I mean, if you're going to run with Detroit, Kansas City, Philly, and the best teams in football, investing in a quarterback, whether it be in the draft or in free agency, and then being able to, move on and get something for that quarterback is probably one of the fastest ways to build a roster. So I'd look at it as a maybe a roster building possibility as well. But I just think it makes sense. It makes sense. Like, if I'm a young quarterback, Mac Jones, I was thinking Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields. All 3 of those guys should want to fight each other to come to San Francisco, because the Niners are going to have a good offensive coach, a good offensive plan, probably an improved line, and a number of weapons. And you're going to not have to play. But if you do play, you're going to be surrounded by a really good opportunity. You're going to get a chance to watch Purdy practice, which, according to Sam Darnold, is a big plus.
If you are an offensive depressed asset,
it makes sense.
Getting coached up by Kyle Shanahan and the Niners is not the worst thing that could happen to your future career. We've seen plenty of, by the way, we wouldn't have to even have this conversation at whatever price point, they're not going to get Justin Fields. They're not going to sign Justin Fields. It's not happening. Tanner Mordecai should have been played. He should have started the last 2 weeks of last year. Just so you maybe know that, hey, maybe Justin Fields or Tanner Mordecai is the next Justin Fields. Then you can, or be better, hopefully. So, again,
they showed no interest in that. They showed no interest in that.
They really wasted the end of last season in my mind. We never want to waste anyone's time. Like and subscribe. It's going to be a very interesting week across both of our channels here. Free agency. We're going to have news popping up at all times. I'm sure emergency and live shows will be both up of our sleeves this week, Larry. So much going on. Just time to lean into the Warriors. Basketball in the month of March doesn't get any better. Here we are. This is a real fun time of the year, all leading up to the draft next month. So like and subscribe, our good friends. Larry, what do we got from a super chat standpoint? Let's look at some supers today.
We got 7 supers today. Stockton Slap 209. Greenlaw will be a Ram. You heard it here first. Oh,
well, I've heard that in other places too, and you might be right.
I don't want that. Stockton Slap 209. The Rams will host the Lombardi in Santa Clara. Oh,
I'm just saying that all of a sudden his Rams credibility just took a little hit there, right?
Stockton Slap 209. Enjoying the Santa Clara collapse after the whiff.
Oh boy. At least he's paying to say these things.
Samuel Winchester. Sign your quarterback. Get the cap healthy. Draft well.
Agreed.
There you go. Sounds like a fortune cookie, but thank you. I enjoyed eating here today. Fuji Simeon didn't know Miami was interested in Joey. If they offer him a multi-year deal or a modest 1-year deal, I think he takes that over any deal with the 49ers. I don't know. It's really hard to say because he is a Florida guy. Damon pointed out the obvious tax implications compared to California. But this guy's made nothing but a ton of money, and I don't know. I think life kind of calls your bluff. What would you say the over-under is on the number of times that Joey, Nick, Mama Cheryl, or Dad John Bosa ever sounded even enthusiastic about Joey and Nick playing together as professionals? The over-under is probably like 100. They probably said, they probably had every neighbor in their, every person they've probably walked. You got 2 guys playing in the NFL. Wouldn't it be great if they played on the same team? Right.
Here's the thing.
Hell yeah, it'd be great. Cheryl would love it.
That's the type of shit that hits the internet that I pay no attention to. I don't care what mommy or dad says about anything, or 2 brothers talking about maybe playing together. I don't give a rip. And I've seen it 25, 50, 60 times. I mean, there's a lot to it. And like you said, sometimes the world says, oh yeah, you want to do that? Well, here's your chance. Your chance. Look, for Joey, I think if there's a third team that comes into the mix that is a real contender, that might be the real lure. Do you want to play for the team that your dad played for, or do you want to play with your brother? Me, I would want to go play with my brother, and I think you have a better path to contention. Not to mention, if you're a defensive end, you got a lot easier group of quarterbacks to get to, I think, in the NFC than you do in the AFC. So just from a easier workday standpoint, you might choose an NFC team if you're a defensive end. Look, if the price is perfect, do it. Anything other than a perfect price, walk away.
Yeah, it's gotta work. It's gotta work financially. The Patriots have signed Morgan Moses, 3 years, $24 million deal up to $28.5 million. So the Pats, who have a lot of cap room, the most of any team in pro football, using it today. We got this one from AJ. It says Kinlaw to the Commanders, 3 years, $45 million. I know we talked about that.
By the way, all these numbers that are going to offensive linemen, the 49ers should have signed Drew Dahlman even at the price the Bears paid. That Drew Dahlman price 3 years from now is going to look like a Honda Civic. No big whoop. Here's the way it's going to go. Really good players in the NFL who don't even start are about to make $8 to $10 million a year. If you're a starter in football, you are in the $20 million price range. If you're a Pro Bowler, you're in the $30 to $40 million price range at any position now. Any position in the league can kiss that 30 million price range, if not more. And if you are, if you're the man with a capital M, you're a $40 to $50 million a year player almost at any position in this league. The number that makes you shiver today will be one that makes you yawn 3 years from now.
They have a lot of centers. They have a lot of centers on their roster. I don't think they were going to spend big money for a center.
They don't have a good one. That's the problem.
Well, the guy they're playing isn't necessarily good. I have a feeling that some of these other guys might be better. Fuji Simeon says if Joey does join the 49ers for a year, he don't need a place to stay. Just be roommates with Nick. LOL. Larry, what team free agency move do you like the most? Let's take a look at some free agent moves. I would say I like the Panthers getting Milton Williams away from the Eagles. I think Milton Williams is a good football player, and I think he's just coming into his own. I think he's going to be a really good football player going forward. So I kind of like that one a lot. What else? I like for the Bears them getting Dahlman. I think that's a good player.
Dude, what is the very first thing? The new coach from Detroit has come and installed an offensive line. That's it.
You got to have an offensive line.
Offensive line is probably the most improved position group in football right now.
Yeah, those are the ones that stand out so far. The Rams getting Devontae Adams. I know that's a big name, but that's a wait and see though,
right? That's a wait and see. That either is going to be kind of a, all right, it worked out well, but not great. Or it's going to be a, holy shit, he hasn't looked this good since he was in Green Bay.
I think of this, I would say on the day one of free agency, a lot of times it's more losers than winners. Because I think your team, these are bad teams that don't have a lot of talent on their roster. So they have a lot of cap room and they're lunging towards, these free agents. And it's like, you know what? A guy said to me a long time ago at the beginning of free agency, when we first got together, Cardinals, I was working for the Cardinals, and the Cardinals were getting ready to up their scouting staff to look for more pro personnel guys. This is the mid 90s. And this old scout stood up and he said, my prediction for free agency is that the players that we lose will hurt us more than the players that we gain will help us. In other words, there's a lot of continuity involved in good football. And just because a guy's doing it well here inside our building with what we're asking him to do doesn't mean that he's going to go somewhere else inside somebody else's building with a different roster and a different scheme and necessarily do the same thing. So what you have is lots of people that are paying players based on what they used to do and in their former system, in their former spot, and now they're projecting them into their current spot. And his long and the short of it was, it's gonna hurt you more to lose guys, so you'd be better off re-signing your own, maybe even at a little more, than it is to change out all these different players and all the unknowns that come with that. And I think over time, I think that guy's been proven correct. I really do. I really believe that you should probably re-sign your guys more. But guys aren't incentivized to resign because it's always like, oh, I want to pluck that person away, that player away. So they oftentimes get better deals to go elsewhere when their best move is probably to stay and have continuity. And like the guy that you sign, like you don't know the culture that Devondre Campbell has lived in. So you don't know if he's going to fit in your locker room. And then by the time he doesn't fit in, well, guess what? You've got guaranteed money and you're all entangled financially. And it's like unentangling is very difficult to do. So I would say this, the lesson to be learned in free agency, sign very few free agents. And of the guys that you sign as free agents, they must be of the highest football character so that when you bring them in, there's no chance that they ruin your room.
Continuity, I believe, is the single biggest missing ingredient that's separating us from watching great football games every weekend. continuity allows teams to figure it out. I mean, how many times have you heard Steve Young talk about this with you or Tolbert or whoever show he was on that moment or whatever podcast he appears on? Steve says football is a complicated dance, and it takes several years to really find the right dance partners and know how to move together on the dance floor. And with so many changing pieces every 6 months in this league due to injury, free agency, players leaving, blah, 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 it's so hard to find continuity. So hard. So, Lions are working to finalize a deal with free agent cornerback DJ Reed, and another might have been Niners addition will not be added to the 49ers.
That's a great addition for the Lions. I mean, if they can get DJ Reed signed, they already added Terrion Arnold, Enos Rakestraw last year. If they can add a guy like DJ Reed, they missed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He went back to Philadelphia this year, and that kind of big-time, raw, aggressive playmaker in the secondary with confidence and swagger. They missed that piece, and this would be a great replacement, even though they play different positions. But DJ Reed is so cocky, so confident. That would be a great addition for Detroit. And another kick to the gut for the 49ers, who are trying to, maybe help out, do something. And thus far, they've been shut out.
Yeah.
Shut out.
By the way, for a millisecond to get back to continuity, the league could help that out. Again, grow your roster size, grow your practice squads. Your cap continues to grow. Have it grow even more. Incentivize players to re-sign to good situations.
Well, that's I've been talking about this for a long time. You have the draft, and it's like there's no incentive to trade back in the draft and accumulate more draft picks because you only have so many spots on your roster. So after a while, you're just unearthing great 7th-round players that you're going to have to cut, and they're going to wind up on other teams' rosters. What you do is you incentivize the draft in that you don't how about this? How about an NFL salary cap that only applies to players that you didn't draft? So if you drafted a player, you can, then you can sign that player and he doesn't count against the cap. But if you didn't draft that player and you just want to buy that player from the Raiders or whatever, you've got to pay. There's a cap for that. And that alone will incentivize teams to keep more of their own homegrown players, which would have more continuity, which I think the fans would like, because then they buy the jersey, and the jersey that they buy is no longer, basically obsolete because the guy's traded.
Sold. That's how good your idea is. So I'll buy it right now. I haven't even thought of it. Sold. I'll buy
it. Because here's the thing. Then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, there's a better relationship between your fans and your players because more of them are sticking around. And guys can still leave. They just, if the other team that signs them is going to have to put them under some cap. And what this prevents is the Wayne Huizenga Marlins thing, where the guy's not involved in baseball. He buys a team, blows up the salary structure by signing all kinds of free agents, wins a World Series, and then sells everybody off at a loss. I mean, that kind of volatility is not good for the sport, and eliminate that. Don't let teams come in and buy all what the Commanders did this last year, I think is kind of bogus, to be honest. I mean, they bought the team and they went out and they signed 24 free agents.
But
now it benefited them. They got to the NFC Championship game, but it's you know what? I mean, is it good to have a team buy 24 veteran players and in 1 year? I don't know. I would say probably not.
But Larry, let's be honest. That is a new regime now that had to get itself out of a corner the last regime painted itself into. So I don't begrudge the Commanders anything that they've done. And honestly, with all of those free agent signings, ain't shit happening unless Jaden Daniels is all that in a bag of chips. I mean, Jaden Daniels is.
They got a lot of money. They just paid 3 years, $45 million for Kinlaw. I don't know about that.
Well, yeah. So that's how success starts coming apart, right? When you start over-investing in bad ideas that have been proven to be bad ideas, and now 2 other locations. And again, I'm not trying to pick on Kinlaw. Kinlaw is okay. Kinlaw is a solid C+, B- player. He just got paid like an A+ student.
By the way, the report card for the day for the 49ers, they lose Talanoa Hufanga. He goes to the Broncos. They lose Elijah Mitchell. He goes to the Chiefs. They lose Jalen Moore. He goes to the Chiefs. They lose. Who else do they lose?
Well, how about this? They haven't even lost Chavarius Ward or Dre Greenlaw or Aaron Banks yet, and all three of them are probably going to go.
They were rumored to be interested in Jonathan Allen. He's visiting the Vikings.
They're
rumored to be interested in Joey Bosa. He's now got the Dolphins interested in him. They wanted supposedly DJ Jones. He re-signed with Denver. They maybe wanted DJ Reed. He went to Detroit. So, and Greenlaw, Mooney, and who was the third guy you said?
Aaron Banks.
Aaron Banks are leaving, but haven't left yet. And Drew Dahlman, who a lot of Niner fans wanted, goes to the Bears. So it hasn't been a great morning. Detroit gets better. That's not good. The Rams re-signed Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if that's
all this activity has the 49ers reconsidering some already what they planned on doing in free agency. You could bring back either Dre Greenlaw or Aaron Banks. Which would you rather them sit down at the table with again?
Wow.
That's a tough one, isn't it?
I would say Dre Greenlaw, even though I love Aaron Banks as a guy. I just think that Aaron Banks regressed, and you can pay Quentin Nelson. You can pay the greatest guard in football, but you can't pay just a good, solid guard $18 to $20 million. You can't.
2 years ago, I thought Aaron Banks was the best player on the 49ers almost. He had a great year. Well, obviously 2 years ago, the best player on the 49ers was Christian McCaffrey, but
he had concussions. That was the concern I had coming in to this year. I knew he was a free agent at the end of the year, and I'm like, well, he did suffer some concussions, but then he got through this year pretty much concussion free, at least.
Wasn't a great year.
But then he got burned by Carl Brooks in that Green Bay game so badly. It was like, wow, this isn't good. And that to me sealed his fate.
Larry, let's kind of wrap up this show with this. Again, like and subscribe, everybody. Lots of stuff coming all week long. It's going to be a huge week of NFL news. Like and subscribe to both channels, please. Congratulations to the McCaffreys. McCaffrey's announced that they're pregnant. Olivia, she's pregnant. So there is a young McCaffrey coming. And I would just say that the number one pick in the 2040 NFL draft.
Fuji Simeon says, Larry, NFL should allow players' salary cap hit be 75% if they were drafted by that team. Reward, draft, and development rather than sign good players. Yeah, it doesn't have to be 100%, but yeah, something that says, you know what? Why are they good? They're really good because they drafted really well. And that's kind of always been the way it should go.
Right.
Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Good show, good stream today. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle, the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. We're also brought to you on this side by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California on the Monterey Peninsula. My friend Anthony Catania is at 831-521-5264 is his number if you want to get a hold of him for all your sports cards and collectible needs. We also have two sponsors for the month of March because we just came from spring training, and thanks to Clawdaddy Arcades for sponsoring the Krug Show. You can follow them at claw_daddy_arcades and find their Northern California location, which is coming soon. And also thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy. Man, this is one of my newest sponsors, Damon. They're an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. So whether you're interested in IT, cybersecurity, marketing, or any other high-demand field. They offer over 30 certification programs to help you take that next step and get more skilled in your career advancement. They've been around for 37 years, over 200,000 students. They place over 100 students with new jobs every single year. And the link, I should say, to all of the sponsors are in the description below. So thanks to all of them for sponsoring the Krug Show. And we also have one other super here too. Andre Hanna says, "Hey guys, do you see us getting a wide receiver in free agency?"
Yeah, Darius Slayton on Thursday.
I would say yes, somebody with some speed. Darius Slayton, Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore. I think those guys fit. Maybe a McCole Hardman. Somebody who can run, I think is probably, I could see the Niners doing that. Damon, anybody you want to shout out before we get out of here?
Look at it this way. I don't have any programs to help improve your career path, but I can make your lunch better. Go to Ike's. Go to Ike's and get a sandwich from my good friend. You'll be very, very happy that you did. If you don't live close to an Ike's, my God, it might be time to move. And if you are in San Francisco and the 49ers doing so little so far in free agency means you need a drink, head to the Dubliner and West Portal for the best pull of Guinness you're going to get anywhere. So thanks very much for watching today. Again, like and subscribe on your way out. And remember that angels fly because they take themselves lightly.
I always look for a bargain in free agency, and some of the best bargains I've ever got are guys that are totally broken and can no longer play football, but it's a hell of a bargain.